Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond.
I'm Nick Bodmer, and on this week's episode, we're talking about the cost and strategy of entering film festivals.
Plus, your questions about how many hours it takes to edit a video, whether to use a wireless lavalier mic, and if it makes sense to make cold calls to drum up video business.
Hey, Griffin.
Hey, Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
Pretty good.
Long
do you
time no
remember?
talk.
Yeah, just 1 week since we talked. Do you remember at the end of our last episode, I mentioned that I got into a film festival?
I do, with ice, right?
Yeah, so the hand-cut documentary that I made about ice, it got into the Sacramento Food Film Festival, and will play there on April 8th.
Well, that's exciting. Right,
Yeah.
It's not called ice, it's about ice.
Right.
I just call it ice.
Well, it's funny because hand-cut is a strange title, too, because I always feel like I'm describing it as, like, the ice documentary. It needs, like, that qualifier. Like, what is it?
What are you cutting, Griffin?
But one of the reasons I made it, besides making it for Panasonic with the GH5, was I thought it'd be nice to make a 5-minute short documentary, because it might do well in film festivals. So I've been entering all these different film festivals. That was the first one I got into. Since the last episode, I've also been rejected from one.
Oh, harsh.
That was the...
So what's the total tally on in and not in?
1 and 1 right now.
A 1 and 1. 50%. That's actually not bad. Actually, I guess I don't know. I've never really entered film festivals before, so I don't know what a good rejection rate is.
Well, let me pull up what it was for Sriracha. I was surprised how good it was for Sriracha. I entered 42 film festivals in 2013 with Sriracha.
Sure.
Actually, I guess a lot of those were in 2014. And I got into 24 of them, so that was a 57% acceptance rate.
Okay, so anything above 50-50, you'd be feeling pretty good.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I mean, it's a numbers game. Like, I enter a bunch hoping I'll get into a few. Like, so far I've entered 13 film festivals with hand cut. And, you know, if it got into 4, I'd be pretty happy.
Now, are there tiers of film festival? Are there certain ones you really want to get into and other ones you really could care less about?
Well, yeah, so I was really hoping to get into Tribeca, which is the big one, like, in my neighborhood.
I've heard of it, so it's probably big, yep.
It's actually not that old. I think it's been around maybe 10 or 15 years now. And Tribeca, I've been to it a couple times because it's right here in Manhattan. And one of the things that gave me hope is that when you go to, like, I mean, there's all these different categories. There's like the short documentary category and the short narrative category, and you go watch a program of all these films. One of the ones they have is a New York Shorts program, which is just New York filmmakers, New York stories. And my experience of watching those is that the bar is lower. Cause
sure. Smaller pool to pull from.
Yeah, it's a smaller pool to pull from. So I thought this would be the perfect thing for me to get into, but the problem is I think their deadline was like the week I was shooting the film.
Oh.
And that was just the week that Panasonic was giving me the camera. So I didn't really have an option.
So you're not entering that film festival?
No, but I am on the lookout for like New York film festivals, the kind of, you know, it'd be nice to do something local anyway, just because I wouldn't have to travel very far.
Sure.
But that's the kind of thing I'm looking for.
Okay. What about like, oh gosh, I'm going to say it wrong. Cannes?
Yeah, Cannes.
Cannes?
So
why do I want...
A lot of the big
that's
festivals,
in France, right?
Yeah, that's in France. A lot of the big ones, I just am not trying because I feel like I may one day make a film that is good enough for that. I think when I go to these bigger film festivals like South by Southwest, you just see really incredible stories. They don't even have to be the most beautiful films. I mean, they usually are, but really, it's story that you need. And you know, if I had longer to make this film, I could have packed in more drama into a 5-minute film, but because
Sure.
I'm discovering the story only in a week's time, it's only as good as, I mean, it's like there's a little bit of story there, but it's not like the most compelling tale of human drama in my film.
Well, you've got dog drama in your film too. That's the part I like.
Like, I think my film is enjoyable and it's informative, and that's what a lot of my stuff feels like, but a lot of my stuff doesn't cross into that like really great storytelling realm. And once I get there, then I would love to enter those kinds of festivals.
And what do you think it takes to get there?
I think it just takes picking the right story and then telling it fully.
Okay. So you're thinking about that maybe for the next documentary.
Yeah,
Really?
I may come across something. I may be inspired by someone I meet and go like, wow, you have a really exciting story. And if we tell this right, this is the kind of thing a lot of people are going to want to see. And it's the kind of thing, I mean, I'm not going to make it specifically to get into a festival, but if I make something good enough, sure, why not?
Sure, makes sense. Okay, so you've applied to 13. I assume there's more applications forthcoming?
Yeah, I may keep entering. Right now I'm just kind of entering ones that I see that look appropriate, some documentary ones, some food film festivals, especially ones that I've already gotten into before. So like, for example, let me pull up the list here. So I think I've spent about $300 so far on 13 film festivals. And a couple of them are ones, like the Sacramento Food Film Festival was one that Sriracha got into. So it just made sense for me to enter that one again. And that worked out. The other one that I didn't get selected for was actually one that I have played at before, the Houston Asian American Pacific Islander Film Festival, which is very specific.
Very specific, yeah.
But I think one thing I learned with Sriracha was that I got into a lot of food film festivals, and I got into a lot of Asian American film festivals, and realized, I don't have to be an Asian filmmaker to go to these film festivals. A lot of times they're just looking for films that have like a representation of an Asian character or Asian culture.
Which you do again in this film, right?
Yeah, I do kind of. Maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, but I thought of the 4 people in the film, one of them is Japanese, and he's showing some of the Japanese techniques he uses and tools, and even one of the white people in the film uses Japanese techniques as well. So I just thought like I should at least show it to them. And actually I think that was a film festival that cost nothing to enter. Yeah, that was $0.
So what do the entry costs range from? So obviously $0 at the low end. What's the most you've ever spent on a film festival application?
The most was probably $75.
And that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not terrible. But they add up quick when you're entering 50 of them or something.
Like what's South by Southwest?
It's got to be above 75. But the prices are different. I was getting a little bit of a discount in most cases because of short films. The short films often don't cost as much.
Okay. Yep.
These ones, I think I've spent around $300 so far, maybe $400. These all seem to range anywhere from $10 to $50. And I've been kind of hesitant to enter the $50 ones just because those are on the high end. And I've been pretty happy to enter things that are $20. Like if they're that low, I'm just like, yeah, let's get a whole bunch of those.
Now, are you going to try and travel with this film like you did with Sriracha and try and go to these festivals that you get in?
I don't know. I'll tell you about how expensive it was to do that with Sriracha. So I paid $1,700 to enter those 42 festivals for Sriracha. So the average fee there was $42 a piece. And then I paid $5,000 to travel to pretty much the first 9 that I got into. I traveled all over. I don't think I'm going to go to the Sacramento Food Film Festival. I would love to, but it's just so far for me to get from New York to California.
New York to Sacramento is pretty far.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go in your stead. It's a little closer for me.
You could go.
I'll just stand there and...
It's going to be a great event because they do like... A lot of these food film festivals do... They serve food along with the films.
So yours will have cocktails.
Actually, I think mine is on like a night called Bourbon and Bites.
Oh, well, there you go. How appropriate.
So that's like that's part of the thing you can't control or even know in advance is these film festivals, whether or not they're even a food film festival, they may be doing an event like that or trying to program a specific kind of thing. So it could just be one year, my film about alcohol and bourbon specifically is going to do very well because they're doing a bourbon night.
Sure.
But at the same time, they may also get a bunch of films that year about the same thing, and your film might be great, but they just decided we have too many bourbon films already, so we can't do that this year.
So this may be a silly question, but why do you enter film festivals? What about them makes you want to do it?
I think if you just go to them, you will want to enter them. And I think you should go to film festivals because you meet a lot of cool people and you also see a lot of great films, and you kind of start to understand where you are in the skill level of all these things. And
sure.
And some of these film festivals I go to and I go, nope, I am not good enough to get into these ones. But other ones, like when I went to Tribeca, I thought, like, I'm on the edge here. Like, if I make the right film, I could get into the New York's program at Tribeca, and that would be a really cool thing for my resume. I mean, it would be nice just to say, like, I got into Tribeca.
So is that one you'll try to get hand cut into next year when it rolls around again?
The timing may not work out very well because a lot of these film festivals, especially if they're in the beginning of the season, like Tribeca,
What is the season, quote unquote?
It really starts in January with Sundance each year.
Okay.
And then like South by Southwest is in March. So Sundance kind of kicks it off, and then there's like a spring season of like March and April are when a lot of the big film festivals are. Then it kind of dies down for a little bit, and there's another kind of summer season, and then it dies down again, and there's like a fall season.
So you say you might miss the window on Tribeca. What's the window? They don't want to see a film that was made a year ago, basically? It has to be more recent?
Yeah, I mean, they would show it, but the thing is, like, those fall festivals are often playing films that have already played in the spring festivals. Like, once you get into spring festivals, you'll find you keep getting into festivals because these other festivals will have seen you in the spring and go, ooh, that was a good one. We want that for our food film festival or something.
Sure.
And I just think a year later, especially if I get play at a lot of festivals, Tribeca wants to be the first one. They don't want to be the last one.
Gotcha. So is there a strategy then to around when you release a documentary or a film you want to go to festivals to try and hit that early beginning of the year season?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to make them, like that was my plan with Sriracha, was finishing it in around Thanksgiving, because that's when in the fall is when a lot of the deadlines for the big spring festivals are.
Gotcha. Makes
sense.
Okay.
I think when I got Sriracha done, it was like, I think I only hit like the South by late deadline. I think I barely was able to submit to South by Southwest. Sundance had already passed. I can't remember when their deadline is. Actually, I will share all of these things. I will put my full spreadsheet that I created in 2013 when I was making Sriracha and entering film festivals. It has all the festivals I entered, got into, didn't get into, their prices, when the festivals are, when their submission dates are. They all have like a early submission date, a regular submission date, a late submission date. I'll just put that in the show notes at Hey.film.
All right, so if I could go to one film festival, what festival should I go to?
Well, I always like South by Southwest. I went like 5 years in a row. This was the first year I didn't go. It's a lot of fun. It's expensive though. But I think
we should go next year and do a podcast from there.
We should.
Just saying. Anyway, continue.
Even though they've like doubled the price now.
Boo.
But what I've also found is that the small ones, I mean, almost any film festival you go to has been a very rewarding experience. Like one of my favorites was in Eugene, Oregon, and it was the Disorient Asian American Film Festival. And again, that was one that I didn't know, like, would I fit in? But it was just, it was so welcoming, and it was actually one of the best projections of my film I ever saw. Like, it was a great theater. They did a wonderful job getting it in focus and, getting the audio just right, and everything was just calibrated perfectly. So you never know, like, which
have
one.
You seen some really bad ones where your film is out of focus and you can't hear it very well and things like that?
It's never been like terrible, but yeah, I mean, some theaters are just a little bit out of focus.
Old and
Sometimes
crappy, yeah.
They just play the audio like 75% of the level I would like it to be at, which surprisingly makes a big difference. When you're watching your film in a theater and you are expecting audience reaction, the louder the film is, if they can hear the jokes more clearly, it just... And they're willing to be louder if the film is louder. Like, no one wants to, like, cover up the film with their laughter. So it can just help to get the audio levels just right.
So when you submit your films, what's the actual process of submitting a film? Is it all online now? You just upload a video file somewhere, or do you send them a Vimeo link, or do they want DVDs? How does that work?
So it is online, and this actually gets to an email we just got from Jerry that I should read here. He said he was binge listening to our podcast, getting caught up, and he was just listening to episode 8. So we're on episode 12 right now. He was listening to the episode about Sriracha and the revenue it's made. And he mentions that I have that dollar amount I spent on film festivals. It was like $6,000 when you take the travel plus the the entry fees. And he's wondering if the money was well spent. He's also wondering if some festivals are a little bit scammy. And he says that's the feeling he gets when using Film Freeway for his submissions, which we'll talk about. Any advice we have would be great. So there's a bunch to unpack there. But I do think it's money well spent because I enjoyed the experience of going to film festivals. Like, especially those travel dollars. It's a lot of money, but I liked being at all these places and meeting people. And it was a lot of fun to, like, go on the circuit with my film. But it depends on what your goals are. Like, I don't know how much that translated into sales of the film. I did win a couple of awards, so that's kind of nice. I can throw that on the DVD cover. But did it make more people buy the film? I don't know.
But you're not necessarily looking at it from a pure revenue and profit perspective, right? There's more to be had doing this kind of stuff than that, right?
I mean, I'm looking at it for the full experience. I think if your goal is just to make money, then maybe it's not the best route. It depends on your film. Like, maybe if you have a feature-length film, maybe a festival might be where you meet a distributor that is going to get a great deal for you. But it just depends on what you want out of these film festivals. I just like going to them. So right now, I have a different film where my goal isn't to go to lots of film festivals. It's just to, like, it'd be nice to get into a few. So I'm trying to kind of tailor it just to, like, the ones I've already gotten into, because maybe it'd be nice to play there again, even if I can't go. Definitely New York ones, definitely short film ones in New York. And I'm also not trying to spend that much money this time. Like, last time I was willing to spend $75 on an entry fee for a festival that I thought would be a great fit. But now I'm kind of like, $30 is good for each one.
Yeah, makes sense.
So you asked if I'm doing this online, and I am. I'm using a website called Film Freeway, which Jerry's email mentioned.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Film Freeway?
I have not. I'm totally out of the loop.
Have you ever heard of Withoutabox?
Nope.
So Withoutabox was the website I used when I made Sriracha, because Film Freeway has only existed since 2014, so it was made right after I made Sriracha. Withoutabox at the time was the only way to enter film festivals online, besides, like, maybe some film festivals had their own custom submission on their website. But Withoutabox was terrible. It was built in, like, 2000, and I don't know how much it advanced by 2013.
Web technology has changed a little bit since the year 2000.
It just felt really outdated. The UI was terrible. It just felt like torture every time you were submitting and filling out information about your film. And then you'd, like,
Netscape Navigator.
Yeah. You would upload your film to, like, you'd have to upload a screener to Withoutabox, but it would be, like, really low resolution. I think it was like 240p or something. And so you couldn't, like, use a Vimeo link or a YouTube link or something. It just seemed like basic internet things circa 2013, and we're not in Withoutabox yet. Withoutabox is actually owned by, I think it's owned by Amazon.
Oh, really?
Because I think it's owned by IMDb. Doesn't Amazon own IMDb?
I think they do now, yeah. I was going to say, Amazon's pretty good at the internet stuff, so
right.
That's a little odd. But
well, they hadn't gotten to Withoutabox
their time.
So,
all right, but now we got Film Freeway.
Yeah, and Film Freeway kind of stepped in at, like, the perfect time. They were, they're looking over at Withoutabox saying, these guys have no competition. Why is no one doing this better? And I think they've kind of taken some serious market share away. It seems like everyone's using Film Freeway now. All these film festivals I've been interested in use it. So Jerry mentions that he feels like maybe some festivals are scammy, and you can kind of feel like that when you're on Film Freeway because everything's on there. There's, like, probably thousands of film festivals. So there is this question of, like, is this one I'm looking at a real thing? Or are they just taking my money?
We could make the Nick and Griffin Film Festival and put it on here and charge $20, and there's really no film festival behind it besides us.
Yeah.
Is that what he's worried about? Like, people just kind of making stuff to pull in entry fees? It's
a valid concern because, you can make a bunch of money just by asking people for their submission fees. So I often look at, on Film Freeway, you can see how old each festival is. And if they're brand new, one, I may not want to enter because maybe it is a scam. But two, even if it's not a scam, their first year might be terrible. They might just not be great at organizing a film festival yet. Although, if it's in your local area and it's run by people you know, then definitely do it. Like I would love to go to local film festivals, but I'm not going to enter like this one that's, in the UK and just started their first year, and what do I get out of that?
Now, are all film festivals physical events, or are there like online film festivals too?
There are some of these that are online only, and those could be good or bad. Some of them are also like rolling, like maybe they meet every month, or they award films. Maybe they have one physical event every year, and then they also give out awards quarterly or something. So there are different structures to these that you can find on a website like that.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of looking. They have a nice website.
Yeah, it's a good website, and actually I've enjoyed just being on the email list. I mean, they send me a lot of emails. I think I get an email every day, but every once in a while I get one that's like a roundup of a bunch of festivals coming up. Sometimes I think there must be sponsored emails that the festivals can say, hey, you should check out this one. But it's been useful to go, just every day have a reminder of like, oh, here's a short film fest happening not too far from me, or it looks like the right fit for me. I should just read you some of the names of festivals I've entered.
Yeah, do it.
And none of them are like huge festivals. I mean, I did kind of miss that big first part of the season, but I entered the Food and Farm Film Fest, which is actually one that I got into in San Francisco with Sriracha, and that was one of my best screenings. It was like a fully packed house. It was like 300 people, so I thought that'd be a fun one to enter again. I entered the Asians on Film Festival of Shorts, which I met a lot of Asians on Film people. Like it's a festival in Los Angeles, and I met people who work on that festival when I was at the Disorient Asian American Film Festival in Eugene, Oregon. So again, it seemed like a good fit. I entered Doc Utah, which is a festival I did get into before. I also entered Drunken Film Festival, which is a new one for me. Let's see, I wonder if I could see if that one, how long that's been going. That's been going for 2 years. It seemed like a good fit for my alcohol documentary. I actually almost entered another one. I can't remember what it was called, but it had like an alcohol name to it. But I realized it wasn't alcohol themed. And I kind of thought, I almost wanted to enter because I was like, I bet they'll like it anyway. Like they must have named their festival this for a reason. But then I thought, no, I don't want to enter it because if I do get in, people will just think I got in because, like, it won't look good on a resume. Like,
oh, right. Like, of course you got into the alcohol one.
Yeah, of course. And this one is like, I think a Drunken Film Festival is one that's about alcohol, so it is a good fit.
There's a Las Vegas Film Festival. You could enter that and come visit.
I think I've entered that one before, and that's actually one that I've always kind of wondered about that one, because I've seen that a lot of people win awards at that one. I think it's one where they try to give out a lot of awards, but it also makes me wonder, like, do they have a very stringent screening process, or does everyone win?
Like a participation award?
Yeah. So yeah, they're all different in terms of quality of films and who wins awards and how well they're run. I mean, I've been to film festivals where they didn't ask me to do a Q&A at the end of my film. And it was kind of like, why'd you have me come all the way out here? Like, I think the audience wants that when they go to film festivals. I mean, almost every other film festival does that.
Okay. Pretty common to have that after every screening?
What?
Is it pretty common to have a Q&A after every screening at a film festival?
Yeah. And even the shorts programs, usually they just get all the shorts, the producers and directors up on stage at the very end of the program. So you watch 10 films, and then you get everyone up on stage, and you let the audience ask whoever they want questions.
Oh, that's cool.
But it felt really weird to leave a film festival where they didn't ask questions, because suddenly I'm just filing out of the theater with everyone else.
Nobody knows who you are.
And you do feel weird. It's not like I need the audience to know who I am, but I just screened with all these other filmmakers, and I want to know who they are. Like, we're about to go to the after party, and I want to be able to introduce myself to these people we just screened with, and I don't even know who the people are that made the films, which is just kind of weird. Today I just entered the DC Shorts Film Festival. It was a $50 entry. I don't know very much about it, but it's been running for 14 years, and it's in DC, which is not far from me, so that seemed like an appropriate fit.
Yeah, you can just jump on a train and head down to DC, right?
Yeah. I also entered Dances with Films, which is a Los Angeles film festival I've done before.
Should I ask this question here from Sam on YouTube?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, he asked, when entering film festivals, is it normal or allowed to be selected in multiple festivals for the same film, or once it's accepted, do you have to withdraw all your submissions from others? I think we kind of have touched on this a little bit.
Well, clearly you can enter lots of film festivals at the same time, as I am doing and as I have done in the past. Every film festival I've ever got into, they always want to know what is your status. Some film festivals have rules that, like, you can't enter if you've already played anywhere. I mean, some film festivals are like, if you've showed your film online, you can't get in. I've found that most of those premiere restrictions are in place for features and not for shorts. I think they figure shorts usually have kind of an internet lifespan to them. But even all of these festivals, I'm entering festivals that don't have that premiere restriction, but even the ones that don't have the restriction still want to know when you get in, what can we say to the press? That we would love to say that, is this the first time it's showing anywhere?
Oh, they would be able to say world premiere or something like that, right?
Yeah. So I told Sacramento Film Festival, or Sacramento, the Food Film Festival, that this will be the first film festival it's playing at, and they were very excited to hear that. But
That's
even
cool.
if it's the first one in California, or it's the first one in the U.S., or it's, they're
It's
usually
the first
excited to have
Asian
something.
American Houston Film Festival it's ever played at. Right? No? Okay.
Well, I didn't get into that one.
Dang.
So it'll be the last festival? The
first rejection.
Yeah. In just a moment, we're answering questions about the hours required to edit a video, whether you should use a wireless lavalier mic, and if we've ever made cold calls to get freelance video business.
Hey Indie Filmmakers is brought to you by Wavem Studios and their full-length documentary, The Commodore Story, Changing the World 8 Bits at a Time.
It's the story of the manufacture of some of the first ever home computers that famously closed its doors forever in 1984. And I want to say congratulations to Wavem Studios. Their film has already reached its funding goal on Kickstarter, and at the time that we record this, they have 691 backers already.
That's impressive.
So it looks like they're off to a great start.
Yeah, that's good for them. How many backers did you end up with on Sriracha?
I had 1,300, like 1,315.
Okay, well, they're on their way. If you want to see the film at the end of this year and get your name in the credits, check out their Kickstarter in our show notes at Hey.film.
All right, let's start off our questions with a YouTube comment from Ryan Knorr. And he's talking about our conversation we had last week. You were convincing me that I should be doing some cloud backup.
I don't think I did a very good job, but I tried.
Well, I haven't started cloud backupping yet, so I guess you didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
But his question was, if you're doing all this cloud backup, if you're throwing all your video files up into the cloud, what kind of internet connection do you have, Nick? Like, is there a cap? Because he says he has a 250 gigabyte a month cap, and he feels like he would eat through that with video.
And
footage.
he's right, you would. A 250 gig a month cap is terrible, and it makes me just very sad for Ryan. It sounds like Comcast. They're evil. Yeah, a cap is definitely going to slow you down. It depends how much video you're producing, right? If we're not worried about backing up raw footage and you just want to get, like right now, I'm doing cloud backup of all my final edited projects. Now that everything's up in the cloud, obviously my first upload of all the things I've shot for the last 10 years took about 800 gigs. So, and it did it in like 4 or 5 days. So that would blow through your cap 4 times over. But, if I'm only doing a couple gigs a month of actual final video and I just let it trickle up to the cloud slowly, most of these things let you set upload caps and upload speed limits and things like that. So you have some options for staying within that. But I would be looking to see if I can get that cap upgraded because, God, I do so much more data than that a month.
Do you not have a cap at all?
I don't have a cap. I think I'm doing a couple terabytes a month right now. I should look.
Oh, wow. And he mentions that he uses Netflix he watches a lot of TV there. I don't know what a normal amount of data would be that you're using on Netflix.
I think Netflix is about 5 megabits a second. So, do the math on how long that is. So, it's probably 400 or 500 meg half-hour show would be my guess. Something in that neighborhood.
Okay, so you really could blow through.
A 250 gig cap is rough. Yeah, that's low. I think I've mostly seen that those are on... I'm trying to type my password as I talk. That's harder than I thought. Those caps are usually on like their lower end plans, so sometimes it's one of the things you just got to spend a little bit of money. But you can make it work by setting those throttling limits and just making sure it doesn't push you over, or at least knowing what your overage charges are. Maybe if you go over 1 month and they only charge you $10 or $20, it's not the end of the world. I'm not sure what they charge.
Yeah. So our next question comes from Pipe Wolf Media on YouTube. He loves the podcast, and he has a question. He's wondering how we estimate editing time for videos. He says he gets a lot of different kinds of video jobs, and he hasn't yet found a pattern. Like his 1 hour video, cutting it down to 5-10 minutes, that might take him 2 to 3 hours of editing. But other projects like real estate take half the time. So he's wondering if we have a ratio of...
I think he's right on. It just depends on the type of project, and every project is very, very different. I've gotten it down where I kind of know what I'm in for a wedding or for a real estate video, but the ratio is definitely not the same. I assume you find the same thing. You shoot a lot of different kind of projects.
Yeah, I've often heard people say like an hour of editing per minute of video is reasonable, but it definitely varies a lot. Like this podcast, it might be a 45-minute video, and it's not going to take me 45 hours to edit.
That would be bad.
It's the nature of it. Yeah. I may only have to watch it 3 times over. And in fact, actually, I do find that for like longer projects like weddings, I do usually find that a ratio of 3 times the editing to the shooting. Like if I'm shooting for 10 hours, I probably have to edit for 30 hours.
Yeah.
But then there are films like the Hand Cut documentary. That's a 5-minute film, and that probably took me 80 hours to shoot and edit. I mean, it was probably 50 hours of editing at least.
Sure.
So sometimes it just depends on like the quality you want. If it's really polished, then you're just going to blow it away in editing.
Well, and everyone's different. Like I'm almost certain that you are going to spend more time editing the same kind of project than I will, just because we do things differently. Like I think I could edit like a ceremony of a wedding in less time than the total runtime of the project at the end. Like I don't have to watch every second of footage. I know where to jump to, and I can do it in fast motion. But that might not be the best advice to give. By the way, last month I used 2,250 gigabytes of data, and it does call that an overage. So maybe I do have a limit. I don't know if they charged me more or not, but little side note.
Well, our next 3 questions are actually questions that we answered last week, but we just had such a long episode we didn't even put them in the show.
You're saying I get a break. We've got a YouTube comment from Aleem Ali. Hey Griffin, what carry-on luggage do you use to carry your 2 camera bodies, 6 lenses, and all your electronics?
So I use I actually had to look this up inside my suitcase. I use a Briggs & Riley suitcase, and the model number is TU222X-4.
That's TU222X-4.
But I do love this suitcase. It holds up well. It was kind of expensive. I think it was like $350. But for me, I do so much traveling.
Is that a filmmaking suitcase or just a nice suitcase?
It's not. It's just a nice suitcase, but it does seem to work pretty well. Like one little thing that's smart is, on the back of a suitcase, there's where the handle retracts down. And there's that wasted space between the 2 bars.
Yep.
And so they put a little pocket there. And I actually find that pretty useful. I can shove some extra filmmaking gear in there. Sometimes I'll throw a microphone in there or something, because it's just one more place I can store stuff. So I'm actually storing most of my stuff in the Think Tank Perception Pro, which is a camera backpack. And I'll pack it real tightly for traveling, and then I have to kind of unpack it for a real shoot. put things in a more logical place. But then I can throw some extra cables. I'll throw some of the things that are more indestructible, like my Pedco Ultra clamps, just like mounting gear, maybe a tripod I'll throw in the suitcase along with all my clothes. And this is a suitcase that can fit like in the overhead compartment on an airplane. So I'm able to just get everything as a carry-on. The backpack under the seat, suitcase in the overhead compartment, and I'm not checking a bag.
Very good.
We have an email from Warren. He's talking about shooting a conference, and he's talking about using like a GH5 camera to film the conference, but he's wondering what's like the easiest, quickest, maybe cheapest way to just get audio. Like he doesn't want to have to do an audio recorder or plug into the sound booth or do something with a mixer. Do you have any suggestions, Nick?
Yeah, two things, and we've kind of talked about this before. One is getting an audio recorder right in front of a speaker, so if they're already going to have their own mic, and you can reach a speaker, sometimes they're up too high and you can't get to them. But if you've got one that's somewhat accessible, just get your audio recorder as close as possible. Make sure the level's not too hot so it doesn't clip. And then whatever everyone's hearing, you've got audio of. So if their mic is good, it's good. If their mic is cutting out in the room, well, that's exactly what it sounded like. Option 2, again, unless you want to spend a lot of money, I would not go wireless. You have to spend a decent amount of money to get stuff that works. So
right. That's what he was wondering, if he should use a wireless lav.
Yeah, I would say no. So I would say get a small audio recorder. I've got a small Tascam I use, and plug a lav into it, and then treat the audio recorder as like the lav wireless mic pack, but instead of having it transmit, it just records right there. So you can put that in a pocket and run the lav mic up and clip it on, and then you've got good audio.
Well, yeah, you might even get 2 cheap audio recorders, like that little Tascam. Is that the DRO5?
I have the DRO8, I think.
Oh, yeah, it's the DO8. That's what it is, yeah, that little one. You could almost get 2 and have one in the pocket plugged into a little cheap lav mic, like a $20 lav mic, and they wear that. And then you have another one that's catching the speaker audio so that you have redundant audio. Because, yeah, he mentions having a wireless mic, but I just worry those things always seem to have problems. There's interference, especially at a conference. Everyone's on their phones. There's Wi-Fi everywhere. It's all getting in the way. And I just feel like your simplest way with a wireless mic would be plugging it right into the camera. You could do that with an adapter. But then your only audio is wireless, and something is going to go wrong, I think.
Yep.
And like last week, you talked about just pointing right at the speaker. I think that might just be your best way to go.
All right, we've got an email from Ross. In your years as a freelancer, did you ever have to actively find or advertise for work? We have considered going door to door or cold calling businesses to see if they have any video needs, but it seems like it could be an ineffective strategy.
So yeah, we talked last week about like work leads to more work.
Sure.
And so, but I do want to think about what were the times that you like really had to like go out and like cold call people, or what was like the most desperate thing you ever did?
Well, I don't like to think I got too desperate, but I definitely did pay to advertise. Even when things were going well and I had plenty of business, it was a good return on investment. I mean, you'll hear bad things about the not.com. This is, again, I'm wedding focused, so I apologize. But yeah. For advertising for weddings, the not.com was expensive, $2,000 or $3,000 a year. But for me, if it brought in a couple weddings, it paid for itself. And I got a lot of leads that turned into business from the not.com. So yeah, I did use that. You got to be ready to lay down some cash. You got to really pay attention to, what you put on that page. It needs to be inviting. You need a call to action. So everything I did was designed to make it really easy and get them to do something. So for me, it was check availability, right? Very, it seemed low cost for the customer, right? All I was asking them is what's their email address and what's their wedding date, and they type in the wedding date, and they click the button that says check availability. And I think most people assumed it would tell them right then. Of course, I didn't have anything that fancy set up. All it did was shoot me an email with their name and their email address and their wedding date. And then I would try and get back to them as quickly as possible via email and let them know, yes, your wedding date's available. And now I'm in a dialogue, right? And now I'm talking with the customer, and the conversion rate was really good for me. So that's something I've done. How about you? You're the guy going after corporate work.
Well, I think the most desperate thing I ever did was I went to a wedding show.
I did do that. That was bad.
Yeah, I don't know if it led to much. I mean, I think maybe I got one wedding from the show, which might have been worth it because I think the show maybe cost $400 or $500 for me to go to. And maybe it's always hard to say what those things lead to. I mean, there may be someone that 5 years later, when they see your name on a website, they go, wait, I mean, maybe even just subconsciously, they're like, that seems like a credible person because in the back of their mind, they saw you once. But yeah, that just didn't lead to a lot of work. I tried a little bit of advertising, but it kind of just seems like, for me, I would advertise one thing like weddings, and I would get different kinds of work. It was just the fact that people knew that I was available for business. And so taking another kind of job, doing a corporate video for a church might lead to more videos with that church. And then that someone at that church knows someone else, and that led to more local business.
Well, and I guess there's a couple other things that we do that we could consider advertising. Well, I mean, both of us have always had a website that advertises we do video work and has rates or something like that on there, right?
I do think the SEO matters a lot. I mean, I still get emails from like confused people now. Like some people are like, you're a wedding videographer in Illinois, right? I'm like, I don't even know where you're finding that. But like, because I have this web presence that says like, I'm a videographer. At some point, it said I lived in Illinois. I think my website probably still says I used to live in Bloomington, Illinois. But that matters. People search this stuff.
Yep. And the other thing is business cards, right? I mean, I know it sounds silly, but whenever I'm working and shooting an event, I have people come up and ask me, about it. And so I always had business cards on me that had name, phone number, website. Just have those ready to hand out.
Speaking of business cards, do you remember the time-lapse in my hand-cut documentary of the Flatiron Building?
Yes.
So I'm standing there for 5 minutes shooting the time-lapse, and this guy just walks right up to me and he goes, you shoot video? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I need someone like you. Here's my business card. I was like, all right, strange, but you never know where work is going to come from.
Exactly. So I would do that. And the other thing I would do was work with the photographers at the weddings I would do, because they drove a ton of business to me. So that's it. That's what I got.
Yeah, it's probably a good way to think about it is who are the people in your community who are going to be asked about video? And maybe don't go door to door cold calling everyone, but if you can at least network with the people that maybe you're in that will be receiving these kinds of requests, that may be a place to start.
Sure.
So, Nick, it's time once again for that part of the podcast where I tell you about the other podcasts I've been on.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Where were you this week, Griffin?
This week, I was on Aaron Mull's podcast. Aaron Mull is a listener of our show, and I'm constantly tweeting at Aaron. He's a very engaged fan of ours, and he has a podcast called Something from Nothing, which is a wonderful podcast about creativity, and we had a 30-minute conversation about creativity. When you make YouTube tutorials and you're giving away free knowledge on the internet, people are generally really nice to you.
Yeah, hopefully.
All my tweets and YouTube comments are super positive. They're just, people like me for what I'm giving back. The moment I start telling stories about politics, I think I was able to do it in a way, I don't want to be part of the controversy. So I could, as a documentarian, kind of just show you what it was like to be at a Trump event or a Clinton event.
Wow.
Or who these people are like that are following each candidate. And I was able to kind of not be part of it as the filmmaker. So generally, when I got pushback from the left and the right, I felt pretty good about a video I made. Like, no one feels like it was biased. They just, everyone hates it.
Yeah.
So you can check that out in our show notes at Hey.film, or you can Google the Something from Nothing podcast by Aaron Mull. And I just want to say real quick before we go, if you're listening to this early in the day on Wednesday, coming up at 1 p.m. today is my live stream about the GH5 from the B&H headquarters in New York. And then later in the day, I'm doing a screening of Sriracha at Stony Brook University. So if you're in Long Island, you should come check that out. It's a free event.
Awesome.
Well, Nick, I will talk to you again next week.
Griffin, it's been a pleasure, as always.
As always.
Red leather, yellow leather. Those old boats won't float. Okay, I'm ready.